Hello, and thank you for being here. So, Zadid Architects is, of course, one of the most famous architectural studios worldwide. And since its design is deeply rooted into parametric design, we wanted to understand better how it is that it relates to the necessity of the construction industry for standardized processes.
Well, to start, I think we've been developing the concept and the approach of parametric design over many, many years. And what we do is we can take parametric design to bring in all of this information from the construction industry and to really bridge the gap between design and construction. On the one hand, we can use parametric design to inform our designs of environmental information in terms of sustainability, in terms of solar gain, the forces from wind, and all of these local inputs. We can also use it to bring in information about the environment around the building. So let's say people flows, the kind of analysis of a neighboring city. And I think we can also bring in inputs from the construction industry. So what are the units that the timber construction is standardized? What is the standards for steel construction? What are the reaches of certain types of new ways of fabrication? And we can input all of that and use it to optimize our design process.
Fantastic. And you have just talked about the part of sustainability, because in many cases the projects from Zadid Architects are of course related to particular aesthetics, and it is the first thing that comes to mind thinking of the project. How does sustainability relate to the design processes in the studio?
I mean, I think in this day and age it's really clear that as architects, as designers in the built environment, sustainability is by far the top responsibility, the biggest concern that we have to address on the planet. And naturally, the designs that we've been working on in the studio have always been about addressing movement, bringing many different factors in from many different perspectives across the site, and that naturally lends itself also towards designing with sustainability as at the foreground. A lot of times, well, usually the first few design decisions that we make have the biggest impact in terms of sustainability. So the orientation of the building, the amount of material that's needed for the structure, the shading, those we can address all of them in a very sophisticated way in the way that we work.
And since also the majority of the projects that you have followed are characterized by a great level of complexity, and usually the different elements have to be assembled also on site in your project, how in your opinion could the off-site technologies be a valuable opportunity for architects and architectural studios in their future projects?
We've actually been working a lot with off-site prefabrication possibilities in construction. Or also, for instance, there's the project in Miami that I was speaking about, which is the tallest tower that's been built with this type of technique where the molds were processed, they were created in the factory. And it's for a tower that has an expressed structure, so it has a really beautiful, elegant structure, but they were shipped to site and the concrete and the reinforcement was cast on site. So that kind of hybrid strategy is one really interesting possibility in terms of being able to design for what's available locally and considering the quality and the cost of the construction of a project. We also have research teams which are looking at what's available in the industry. So for instance, looking at timber and what the standardized units are in mass timber industry, and actually creating a toolkit for designers to be able to design with those parts to optimize what's available on the market and what's the full spectrum of design possibilities.
And related to that, in the earlier conversation, you underlined the importance for young architects to being able to use tools and informational tools and softwares in order to create and relate to the project itself. It is interesting for me to understand better also the relation between off-site construction and technologies, and the importance that you give to the use of softwares in order to design and have like a blueprint of the project.
Yeah, I think our teams are really well placed to be able to analyze and simulate as well as design in a simulated environment, in the virtual digital environment. So more and more we see projects that are delivered and coordinated within a 3D space, within a digital space that's connected across all of the different consultants. We also, we also customize a lot of our design tools so that we can bridge more the inputs from the construction industry, and whether those inputs relate to environmental analysis or whether they relate to the flows of people and how people move through and congregate within space, or how we can optimize the layout of a floor plate for an office to increase the amount of collaboration. There's so many different facets that we can bring together in the sets of tools that we have. And I think what's really exciting for us is now we can see that those possibilities are really increasing in the construction industry, and that a whole generation of architects are also building up those skills to use technology with such a wide-ranging effect.
That's fantastic. And in your opinion, how will technology influence even more the daily job also of the future architects?
That's a great question. I think we're looking at that every day. We're really excited about what artificial intelligence is offering, the computing power, because within the industry, because on many different fronts, I think our designers are also experimenting with some of these innovations, and we see it as being a very helpful new type of interface to conceive, to sketch, to communicate. But at the same time, we're already using it to simulate, to analyze. So now we can build a framework, whereas before it might have taken us a day to study one option. Now we can, if we build that framework, we can test 100 and run the test overnight. So we can simulate all of these possibilities and really then strategically choose the ones that offer the most for the users and for the final design.
And after 7 years, it's been 7 years since the founder of Zaha Hadid passed away. And how do you feel that her philosophy and inspiration is now related to your daily life and the other designer daily job, also related to this type of trends and changing that are happening every day in the architectural industry?
I mean, our studio, Zaha founded this studio to be based on the potential of diversity and collaboration. And I find we're really fortunate to be a part of this practice that on the one hand inspires so many designers of the new generation, but on the other hand is also a studio that really celebrates the potential of each individual designer that's part of the team. So over all of these decades, the practice has built up a team that has delivered a wide repertoire of buildings, of projects, but has also built up a really strong collaborative atmosphere. And I think it's an environment that really looks for and nurtures the potential of the younger designers, and that's the only way that our practice continues to grow and evolve and to stay relevant, because I think the world is always changing and at a faster and faster pace than before, and so this is the way, through this collaboration and bringing on a wide range of talent and experience, is the way that we can stay relevant within an ever-changing world.
And during your lecture, you have underlined the background of Zadid also as a mathematician and a scientist, let's say, from the mathematic point of view. And how do you think these elements shaped the philosophy also, yes, but the drivers of the architectural studio as an approach to creating?
If I can put it really simply, I think there's two aspects to what Zaha, what her values were in embedding that within the studio. And also I would say Patrick Schumacher, who worked very closely with her for many, many years, he also has this belief in what technology can offer, and he's very philosophical in terms of what architecture can do for society. So I would say from Zaha's background studying mathematics, she was always very logical in creating a framework. And I think as an architect, as a designer, one has to, on the one hand, look very widely at inspiration, at the world around us, but on the other hand, also know how to steer the design process. And we create frameworks, we create theses for how we're approaching the design process, and then we have to rationally work our way through and decide which direction to take it. On the other hand, I think Zaha had an optimism in the human spirit, and she had this sensitivity to how architecture can shape our lives, how it can inspire people, how it can bring them together, how it can really improve civic pride and the quality of life for the people who are the ones that live and work in the buildings.
Thank you so much, Melody.
Thanks for having me.